Hmm? Oh, no. Ah, that's over with. All right. Let's go, Jets. Come on. Reserve grade's where it's at. What's going on, guys? Burgz here for another week of tips and predictions on the casual athlete. This week, we have the last round of the regular season. It is round 27, and I cannot believe how quick this season has gone, and I've enjoyed every single moment of it. But we go right through to the grand final, baby. So this will be the last week of all 8 games, and then we move into the finals fixtures. But, guys, just before I go through my tips from last week, round 26, a reminder to like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week, and we can't do it without your support. So if you hit that like button and you hit the notification bell, you won't miss out on any of our latest content. Now, guys, having a look back at the week that was, and I know what a lot of you are going to say, my first tip there with the Bulldogs. If you saw my video last week, you will know that I tipped the Panthers in that video. That was before team list, guys, and this is the danger with team list coming out and the Panthers resting 6 players. I would have been insane to continue that tip, and in no comp did I tip the Panthers, unfortunately, after team list Tuesday came out, and the Dogs, I went with them 112, and they got a bigger victory, but they did make it a bit hard on themselves in the end. Parramatta getting the victory 112. Look, this was a game where I was not that worried. I think a few Warriors fans jumped down my throat last week saying that they weren't a chance, and Para, they took it to them. They have been playing some really good football of late. They beat the Roosters. They've beaten the Warriors. Some really good signs for Parramatta, albeit there was some controversial circumstances around the end of this game. But in my opinion, I think the right call was made in the end. The Roosters getting a win, and this was a big win in my opinion. They put 40 points on the Melbourne Storm in one half of football. Um, really proud of the effort that Trent Robinson's boys put in, and Melbourne, yes, they rested a few guys, but they look a bit shaky. I think conceding the amount of points they did, Bellamy will definitely not be happy with that, especially with guys like Pappenhausen and Munster still out on the field. The Raiders securing the minor premiership, and what scenes it was out at GIO Stadium. Big ups to the Green Machine for getting that over the line. The minor premiership is no mean feat, and the last halfback to win the minor premiership for Canberra was in fact their coach, Ricky Stewart. So it has come full circle for the Green Machine. Awesome scenes down in Canberra, and unfortunately the Tigers couldn't get the victory there. I went the Dragons against the Seagulls. Yeah, I think the Seagulls have been playing some football that they probably should have been playing earlier on in the season. They're playing with a lot of freedom. They're playing like they don't have anything to lose. And they're pretty much going to go close to winning a spot in the finals, but they're going to be so close but no cigar. They're going to finish 10th, in my opinion, or 9th. Broncos getting a victory over my Cowboys in a close one. Now, I thought with the outs that Brisbane would have, that this game would be a lot closer than it actually was. And the Cowboys, to their credit, they gave it to the Broncos. I really thought that we were down 12-0. We scrapped back to make it 12-all. And, I thought we were a chance there at various points in this game. And I did like the jerseys. I thought the jerseys were a cool added fixture. It's something that we don't normally do at the Cowboys, so I was excited about that. But, man, this Broncos team, I don't know how much they've got in this tank. Like, conceding 30 points to a team that really isn't that great in the Cowboys. I mean, it's rudimentary stuff. You can't be happy if you're Michael Maguire, and he wasn't. He wasn't happy at the end of this game. They nearly lost to a team that's well outside finals contention, and for the Broncos heading into the finals, it's not the ideal setup for them, but they get a big test this week in the Melbourne Storm. Now, moving on to Cronulla and the Sunday games. Cronulla getting the big victory, 13+ over the Knights. It looked worrisome for the first 20 minutes, but after that, the Sharks managed to click into gear, and the Knights, they just faded away into the ether. And the Titans, they took it right to the last 5 minutes, but just couldn't get over the line against the Dolphins. 36-30, they went down, unfortunately. But, guys, those are our tips from last week. 6 out of 8 tips correct. I know a fair few people who got 7 out of 8, and some people even 8 out of 8 tips correct. So, well done to those people. But, guys, let's get on to round 27 tips. It's the last round of the regular season. Hopefully, we can get that elusive 8 out of 8. Alrighty, guys. The first game of round 27 is a doozy with the Broncos taking on the Melbourne Storm at Suncorp Stadium on Thursday night. Now, the Broncos, they haven't had a good record against the Storm of recent times. And in fact, they've only beaten the Storm once out of their last 15 games against them at Suncorp Stadium. That's on their home turf. They've only won once. I think it's since 2012 against the Melbourne Storm on their own home turf. Absolutely boggles belief in that one. But yeah, I think the Storm could rest a few guys this week. They can't go up or down on the ladder. They are kind of in a bit of a stuck position right now. They're kind of resigned to the fact that they're going to finish in second spot, purely because the Raiders won last week. They can't get the minor premiership, and the Dogs don't have as good a for and against as they do as well. So they can kind of rest on their laurels this week and think that, you know, we can, take it a little bit easy, maybe get some guys healthy that, they need to get healthier, and then focus on playing the Dogs next week. That is their big prerogative in this game, and it'd be about resting those guys. And I think that it's only going to help out Brisbane. Brisbane are vying for that fourth spot. They probably should hang on to it if the Storm rest these guys. But there's just something that happens every single time the Broncos go out and play the Storm. A month ago, it was Adam Reynolds, uh, Cobbo, and Ezra Mam going down with severe hamstring injuries. What will this week bring? Who knows? It could be absolute chaos out there. But I'm actually going to back the Storm in this one. I think that Bellamy will want to make a bit of a statement before the finals, maybe rest a couple of guys. Maybe Munster gets a bit of a rest and Wishart can lead the team around. Pezzett's been playing pretty well as well. So, you want to get those guys a bit, finals type ready in case they have to step in a big moment. So this is a big game to do that. I do think that the Storm can go up to Suncorp and win this game. Unfortunately for the Broncos, it's just been too patchy for me. They gave up 30 plus points to the Cowboys. They've given up big points in games this year. The defense hasn't been up to scratch. I think that could carry over into this week. Let's go the Storm, 1-12. Four Pines Park is the venue for our first Friday night game, and the matchup is the Manly Seagulls taking on the New Zealand Warriors. Now, I think this has been a bit of a topsy-turvy season for the Manly Seagulls. They've played great football in patches, but then they've gone through stretches where they could barely score any points. And over the last 3-4 weeks, Turbo's turned the clock back. He's starting to play like 2021 Turbo, and it's just none of it made any linear kind of sense at all this year, and that's why they were one of, if not the hardest team to tip this year. I'll be completely honest. They're not going to make it into the finals, thank God, because I don't think they deserve to. But they come up against a team in the Warriors that are battered. They are bruised. The injuries are catching up with them at this point. You have to say that. I think last week they gave a valiant effort only to just drop short again. I think there's been so many games this year where games like that for the Warriors have either gone in their favour more often than not, and that is why you see them sixth at this point in time with a terrible for and against, and that's what's costing them at this stage of the year. They were very good at winning tight games this year, and they weren't great at putting teams away, putting the sword to teams, and really running up a score. I like the Warriors in this game, but man, Manly to go out with a victory, DCE's last game for the club in his career, it's really tough for me to see how Manly don't get up for this occasion. It's their longest tenured player. He's their club captain. He has had a lot of accolades for the club. Don't get me wrong. But I think the best thing for the Warriors this year is they love playing spoiler. They've done it a couple of times this year. They won't make this easy for the Manly Seagulls, but I just see the Seagulls winning, unfortunately. And for the Warriors, it really looks like a first round matchup with Penrith, which is not good for them. Even though they will probably be at home at Go Media Stadium, like that's going to help. And yeah, I'm really keen to see that matchup. But I think the Warriors probably could have done a bit better this year had injuries not gotten involved. Let's go the Manly Seagulls in this one, 1-12. And now we move on to a rivalry that is as old as time, with the South Sydney Rabbitohs taking on the Sydney Roosters at Allianz. Now, this is going to be a blockbuster affair. Prime time, Friday night football. The lights are on. It is time to shine. And I think the Rabbitohs are really in a position to play spoiler here. They would absolutely love to get one over on their crosstown rivals and potentially cost them a chance to miss the finals this year. I think that'd be, if there was a crown jewel in the middle of South Sydney season for season 2025, it's one, Alex Johnston getting the try scoring record. Can he potentially do it this week? I don't think it'll happen this week. Unfortunately, I feel like he's going to have to wait until next season. But number two would be costing the Roosters a place in the finals. And they can potentially do it if the Dolphins win this week. The Dolphins need to put on a bit of a score, but if the Rabbitohs can get a victory over the Roosters this week, then man, it's all to play for the Dolphins. After that, there'll be a few guys be back for this game. Bailey Bentley Harpy is available. Cam Murray is potentially going to be available for this game, and what a wild scene that is with potentially seeing his name thrown up there as a guy who's going to be playing this game. Jack Whiten will be available. We'll also get Sam Walker back for this fixture, and you could argue that last week they didn't need him. They didn't need Sam Walker to score 40 points against the Storm team, who are coming second at the moment. But you just think with losses like they had to Para in recent weeks, they are a little fragile, this Roosters team. Like, if one of their main playmakers goes down, I really can't see Sandon Smith, not Sandon Smith, sorry, Hugo Savala stepping up and taking over the team. He's kicking really well. He has a big boot, and I really admire the progression that he's made this year. But I just wonder whether, a couple of things that they're trying at the moment, like playing Radley on the edge, don't love that. Saw Wong coming off the bench now. I like Blake Steep coming off the bench. I think Nafahu White's great in the middle, needs to play a lot of minutes. But as soon as he goes off, they do lose that bit of punch in the middle for long periods of time in games. So I don't know. I feel like the Roosters are obviously the favourites for this game, and you've got to tip them, which I will be doing as well. I'll be going on the Roosters 1-12, but you just know that old Wayno is going to cook up something to potentially ruin Trent Robinson and the Roosters season. Let's go the Roosters 1-12. Super Saturday starts off in Wollongong, where we have the Dragons taking on the Panthers. Now, the Panthers got a lot of shtick from a lot of teams for resting 16 players last week, but an outlier among them was Dane Laurie, who had a fantastic game under the circumstances. And a lot of people are talking about him potentially starting for a number of different clubs. And just on Dane Laurie really quickly, I think he could start at a number of different clubs. And I think if you had to give me a spotter, like maybe ranking Dane Laurie at this point in time, I'd probably say he's better than guys like Clint Gutherson at the back. I know Gutho's been phenomenal for the Dragons this year, but I'd say he's better than Clint Gutherson. I'd say he's probably better than Will Kennedy for the Sharks. I'd say they're very similar players, but I'd give the edge to Dane Laurie. Yeah, I think there's a couple of different clubs that he could play for. As far as tipping in this game is concerned, I've got to go with the Panthers, right? Like, yes, the game's in Wollongong, and yes, St. George can really, I guess, make the road for the Panthers even harder if they're going to slip them down to, I believe they could slip to 8th position if the Roosters win, the Panthers. So they need to win. They want to be playing, I would say, either the Sharks or a combination of the Sharks or the Warriors. I wouldn't want to play the Broncos if I was the Panthers. Broncos have an added incentive to beat the Panthers. So I would probably, if I was Ivan Cleary and the Panthers, would not want to play the Broncos. But in terms of coming up against this St. George team, man, they're just missing a few guys at the moment. I was checking out the casualty award for the Dragons, and it just doesn't look good. There's so many guys that are out. And just till next season, I think it's Ryan Couchman, Toby Couchman, Holmes as well. It's tough when you got that kind of quality sitting on your bench. Dylan Egan, who was fantastic this year. It's going to be tough for the Dragons, and it will be tough in this game as well. Let's go the Panthers, 13 plus. Next game on Super Saturday is the Titans and Tigers up at Seabus Super Stadium. Now, the Tigers have won their last 2 games against the Titans, and no one can forget the Adam Dewey field goal special on July 20th earlier this year at Leichhardt Oval, where it was absolute scenes at the end of that game. But this is a very different kind of fixture, a little bit of a different feel to it. I think maybe the Tigers, when they won that last game, or maybe it's very similar, I would say that when they won that last game, they were in a little bit of a rut, needed a win to kind of crack them out of it. And the Titans, you could say the same thing. They were probably on the back of a losing streak, really needing a win. And I think they actually cracked out a win the next week, to tell you the truth, because I think I backed them in that game where Dewey hit the field goal. So, do I back him again here? That's the real question. Dewey's not playing this game, so hypothetically, you could think if they got into a field goal shootout, there would be no one really from the Tigers to take a field goal. Luai actually hasn't kicked a field goal in his career. I don't know. I think that the Titans at home, I kind of like them to, kind of finish their season with a win. The Tigers of late have just been really poor. They kind of stayed in the game with the Raiders last week, and it was, it was fun for a little bit, but the Raiders kind of just went, all right, this is our game now, and we're going to take it from you. We'll take those 2 points. Thank you very much, and just took over the game, and there was nothing really that the Tigers could do. The Titans' defense, though, is just so bad. Like it was so pathetic on the weekend. Like they can definitely score some points, and don't get that wrong. The Tigers' defense is also pretty good. So, like, you wonder if they can crack them. But yeah, I really hate this Titans defense right now. It's got no structure. There's no forthright planning. There's no assignments. There's no sticking to tackles either. Like the actual quality of tackles, hitting and sticking is not working either. And there's no energy in their line speed at all. So they kind of wait for the game to come to them and then try and spark something out of that. And that happened last week as well. It'll probably happen again in this game. I think the Tigers will get out to a lead. Titans will eventually get somewhere close, make it close, and then the Tigers will probably run away with it in the end. Let's go the Tigers, 1-12. We finish off Super Saturday by going to a core stadium where the Dogs will be taking on the Sharks. Now, no bones about it, this is a must-win game for the Sharkies. They have the potential to finish in the top 4. I don't know how they are in that position, but they are in that position to potentially finish in the top 4. They've lost their last 2 games against Canterbury. Last time it was by 14 points, and then last year was also by a field goal. I just don't love this Canterbury. I don't love either of these two teams at the moment right now. I think Canterbury, you could say, because of their early season form, are the better side overall, but that was with a different halfback. Like, at the moment, they've got Galvin in there. He seems to be taking over a lot of the general play duties, a lot of the inner workings between, the players, and interjecting himself, taking runs as well. He took a lot of runs in the game last week. Again, I don't love Matt Burton as well. I feel like he only kicks into gear when they're up. Like, they were up 10 last week, and he was like, oh, yep, I'll start playing now. Like, it's almost as if he doesn't want to fight for it. Like, if it's a tussle, you barely see Matt Burton. He goes missing in a lot of games, and doesn't really come up with a play to get him back in the game either. Like, he'll pile on. He's very good at piling on. But, in terms of it being a tight tussle, it's not really there. Cronulla, very similar. Like, I don't really see if, like, they're out of the game. I don't really see where the spark comes from. Like, Trindle didn't finish the game last week, so is he going to play? We'll have to wait and see. Hines, again, it basically keeps coming back to, if they didn't have Blake Brayley, then would they be anywhere near the position that they are in right now? Because once again, on the weekend, he sparked their attack. And I know Ronaldo Mulatalo scored 3 tries in the end of the game, but that was on the back of the work that Brayley had done earlier. And you got to argue, it was against the Knights. Like, the Knights are scrambling at the moment. The Knights were pretty good for the first 20 minutes of the game. They were up 12-0. It was, or 10-0. It was looking good for the Knights. But, I don't love either of these teams right now. I'm going to pick the Dogs, though. I think they get a victory. I just think when Cronulla come up against some actual decent opposition, they tend to crumble a little bit mentally. So, and the Dogs have the ability to do that to you. They can strangle you really early on, and can really give you no room to move. So, going to go the Dogs in this one, 13+. We start Sunday off in Redcliffe, where the Dolphins will be taking on the Canberra Raiders at KO Stadium. Now, this is only the second game that the Dolphins will be playing at KO Stadium this season, which I think is a little bit ridiculous, guys. Like, come on. Like, you get 11, 12 home games a year. You can't take one quarter of them, even like 3 games a year, like one at the start, one in the middle, and then one at the end. This was basically one at the start. Third round they played at KO Stadium, and now they're playing round 27 as like a throwaway. Like, oh, here you go, here's your extra game. I think if I was a diehard Redcliffe Dolphins fan, and no doubt they've come out of the woodwork in the last 2 years, they have a bigger following than some other clubs in the competition. I'd be a little bit upset that we don't go to the cultural homeland as much, but that's maybe an argument for another day. Aside from that, though, I think in this game they could win it definitely. Finny Fuyaki is due back to come back. Herbie Farnworth, no doubt, racing that clock to get over a hamstring injury to come back for this game, which is a must-win game, and they do need to put a cricket score on the Raiders to be any kind of chance, and they need the Roosters to lose, but I think what works in their favour is the fact that the Raiders have already won the minor premiership. So if I'm Ricky Stewart, I need to think with my head, not my heart on this one. But for Ricky Stewart, that seems to be a very hard thing to do. There's not a negative on him. He's a very passionate coach. He's a very player forward coach, wants only the best for his team and always thinks that they get slighted, underhanded. He is the ultimate um, dad of a coach. He cares about his players and his playing group so much, but often the smart decision doesn't get made there for Ricky Stewart. So I would really hope that he would take into account that we don't need to win this week. We need to give some guys a bit of a rest to figure out a few like niggling injuries. No doubt Hudson Young has one. We've heard about that. I think Ethan Strange deserves a week off. Like he's a 19, 20-year-old kid playing 27 rounds of football isn't going to be good for his body. Give him a week off. I think he's deserved that. And there's some other players in there too. Joe Tarpany, no doubt. Josh Papali'i not getting any younger. So hopefully they can get those guys a bit of a week off and the Redcliffe Dolphins or the Dolphins can get in here and win this game. Let's go the Dolphins, 1-12. And guys, the last game of the round is a fun one with the Parramatta Eels taking on the Newcastle Knights at CommBank Stadium. Now the Knights are in dire straits at the moment. They will unfortunately not get the wooden spoon though, as per my prediction earlier in the season. But I was one off. I desperately wanted the Knights to get the spoon. But they have some things to look forward to over the off-season. The signing of Dylan Brown and the signing of potentially a new coach, although I am hearing that they are potentially going to just sign Blake Green, the assistant coach, who is currently their attacking coach, as the head coach next year, which I think is a very perplexing move. If you know anything about the Knights this year, you'll know that they are struggling more than ever to score points, and Blake Green is their attacking coach. Yeah, that sounds like a really good thing to do. Make him the head coach. Yeah, that's really good. I'm wondering whether Riles will put Dylan Brown in the team this year as like a bit of a, this is what you're leaving us for moment. I don't know whether that's a bit mean of him to do that, but I would love to see Dylan Brown go up against his new team this week and see what they're all about. I think with the Knights, we know exactly what they're about. They're about potentially playing well for 20 minutes or so, or getting Fletcher Hunt to jump up for a high kick, and then after that, really capitulating. I think if the Eels, once again, they don't make any mistakes, this is their game to lose, right? Because I think the Eels, what they've done really well this year and over the last month of football, especially beating teams like the Roosters and the Warriors, is their completion rate has been a lot better. In games that they played against, like the Cowboys, we saw when they lose a lot of ball, their attack gets very disjointed. They tend to try and score on every play because they feel like they can, especially if they come up against a weak defense. And that's something that I don't want to see this week. I don't want Parramatta to go out there and feel like they can score on every play against the Knights, because you won't be able to. The Knights defense is pretty good. Like it's not that bad. It's nowhere near as bad as some other teams in the competition. But if they score about 16 points, the game's pretty much over. So that's really unfortunate. But yeah, we're going to be going para in this game, 13 plus, and unfortunately for the Knights, it's just going to be one of those seasons to forget. So, guys, that's it for my tips and predictions this week for round 27. Let me know your tips down in the comments section below. Let me know what you think of my tips potentially as well. If you want to throw me a comment, I'm always happy to hear it. And, guys, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week. And I'll catch you on the next one.